The Oklahoma Sooners are closing in on another linebacker in the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Win or lose, visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm John Williams. He's Jay Smith. The Oklahoma Sooners appear to be closing in on another linebacker from Oklahoma State. Steve Wiltfong and Pete Nakos of On3 predicted that Oklahoma would land Oklahoma State linebacker Jeff Roberson, a very experienced linebacker and a guy that was pretty productive for the Cowboys in 2024.
Yeah, he was. And little nugget there, his brother Luke Roberson, I guess, was an offensive lineman at Oklahoma at one point.
Boomer
Sooner. So it sounds like you tweeted this out, and I think there was a fantastic tweet to say, is that it feels like this regime is making up for the old regime's refusal to recruit in-state. And this is one of those situations. Now, Jeff Roberson, he's pretty high up in the tackle numbers for Oklahoma State. I think he was ranked in the top 5 tacklers there. I know he's one of the top guys in pressures based on PFF. And so if the Sooners do pick him up, he kind of picks up a role of a good depth piece and special teams tackler for this squad. Because if you really think about it, do we truly need a linebacker? Not so much. You get Kendall Daniels, who is truly a specialist in that, who can play a combination of linebacker, safety, and edge. So that gives you that cheetah spot, but he'll probably play a lot of linebacker. But you've also got Kip, you've got Kobe, you got Kanik, you got Samuel Masigo. So you really got 4 guys you're going to rotate with young guys behind them. But losing Phil Picciotti as well as Lewis Carter kind of puts a hole in your depth to where you want to have an additional body just in case. I think Jeff Roberson can fill that for him.
I do like the idea of bringing in a guy that's got a lot of just life experience, but also on-field experience too. You're young in the linebacker room now that Danny Stutzman is off to the NFL.
Yeah.
Yes, Kip has played a lot over the last 2 years. Kobe McKenzie has seen his snap count increase, but you're young. I mean, these guys are young and they haven't been asked to be the starter for this team full time. Yeah. Now you're throwing these guys into the deep end and saying, okay, Danny's gone. This is your team. This is your defense. Go lead it. You have a little bit of veteran insurance with a guy like Jeff Roberson. I think Kobe McKenzie and Kip Lewis are up to the task. I think they're going to be guys that are going to be able to step in and fill those big shoes. At the same time, you got to have depth. We saw what happened at offensive line and wide receiver when you didn't have a lot of experienced depth to rely on, and it just wasn't very effective. And we've seen in years past when a guy like Danny Stutzman went down with an injury and you didn't have that depth to rely on, your defense might have struggled a little bit. Is Jeff Roberson a guy that I'm expecting to come in and be a day one starter for Oklahoma? Not necessarily. I still think it's going to be Kobe and Kip with Samuel Masigo mixing in as well. I do, though, think that he plays a rotational role and he plays it very effectively. I think because of his ability to rush off the edge, he was 3rd among Oklahoma State Cowboys in pressures in 2024. I think that gives him an opportunity to play in a Trace Ford style of role, right? A guy that can play in a variety of situations for you, and then he can help you on special teams. At Oklahoma State, he was a multiple-time special teams player of the week. I think that is huge. And in this new era of college football, you're not going to be able to keep everybody that's going to eventually be a starter for you. You have to find these guys that are going to play a certain type of role for you. Even if they're just your 4th linebacker and a special teams guy, you got to add those guys. You see it at the NFL level all the time. CJ Goodwin for the Dallas Cowboys was quote unquote their 6th cornerback. He never played cornerback for them, but what did he do? He played on every single special teams unit. And so you're going to start seeing more of this happen where you got to find guys that don't just play good linebacker, but also can help you significantly on special teams.
Yeah, you've got to have extra bodies. I mean, that's the world we in and world that we are in here in college football. And if you really think about it this way too, make a good point out the NFL. The NFL has the roster limits, 56, 55. And here we're at 105. So roughly just about under double what you will see at the NFL level. 105 is really a low number when it comes to the collegiate level. We're so used to being at the 130, 140 range with preferred walk-ons on the roster that Oklahoma's not used to having so little amount of players. And so you've got to make sure that you're getting players that are not only impactful enough, but ones that have played and will play enough ball. That's the good thing here with Jeff Roberson. He had 670 snaps. We talk about Kip and Kobe McKenzie. Kobe McKenzie had 370 snaps last season. And so 337 to be exact, my apologies. So that means that he's played just under half as many snaps as Jeff Roberson did last season. And that experience helps you when it comes to playing out there on the field. Now, granted, we know that Kobe has been training for this position for the last 3 years since he's been here with the Brent Venables regime. We expect Kobe to play the most, but having a body that can rotate in is going to be critical. And so I think Kanik is still going to be probably your Mike sub there. But I think Roberson can come in out there at the will and be available right behind Sammy Omosigho, especially if you toss Sammy over there at the cheetah role. That gives you one more linebacker that can go in and fill a spot.
Yeah, and let me correct myself, actually, because he was only 5th on the team in total pressures. But again, he was playing in multiple of roles, and he only rushed the passer 84 times and still had 19 pressures. Similar to Kendall Daniels. Kendall Daniels only rushed the passer 80 times and had 23 pressures. So these guys, even though they're quote unquote linebackers or a safety, they're good at getting to the quarterback. And he was second in stops. And I love Pro Football Focus's stop metric because it takes into account down and distance. So if you make a tackle for just 2 yards on first down, or after 2 yards on first down, you're getting credit for a stop because it's not a successful play for the offense. If you make a tackle after 5 yards on third down and force a punt, that's considered a stop. It's an unsuccessful play for the offense. So the dude is around the ball, and he played well in some of their bigger games. Against Arkansas, he had a sack and he had a couple stops. Against Colorado, he was very productive, very effective. So it's a good opportunity to add a depth piece if Oklahoma ends up getting his commitment. And again, I think you go back to prioritizing some of these in-state guys. You're seeing them do it at the high school level. Now they're doing it in the transfer portal as well. It just also is a nice, hey, thanks Oklahoma State for these guys. I had a buddy text me. He's like, are we Oklahoma State's feeder program now?
I mean, in a way, yeah, you are OU's feeder program the way it's looking. But the other thing to keep in mind is too, and I understand people are a little upset about just the type of players we're going after. And let me keep re-emphasizing this for you fans. I really would hope you would take in consideration. This staff likes the guys they recruit. A lot. So this is basically what this is telling me, John. And like I said, we've talked about this numerous times, and I want to make sure I re-emphasize this as we're closing out this segment. This staff wants the guys that they recruited to play. And so if we're going to maintain the mentality that your recruits are your more important assets and you bring in transfer guys kind of to fill in specific gaps, you need to make sure that you're finding the opportunities for your recruits to play. And this is how you do that. You bring in guys that have a year left of eligibility. You give them a little bit of run with this team, and you still make it to where all your young guys can get on the field. This is a guy that's more so not only an insurance policy, but someone that could probably go in and be impactful. He has probably a high enough football IQ from playing so much that he can come in and be a plug and play in certain situations or in special teams. But the key thing is, John, what I hope fans recognize is that Brent Venables, Miguel Chavis, all of this staff, Todd Bates, Brandon Hall, they love the guys that they recruit. Jay Valai, they want their players to play. And so as long as you're not getting a whole bunch of dudes to completely replace your own guys, it makes it even easier to retain your own players.
Right. And they're doing what you see a lot of NFL teams do. Draft well, retain your own guys, and then plug holes through free agency, which the transfer portal is free agency.
It is.
But are they done? Are they done in the transfer portal? Let's discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Well, that's happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for the future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, are the Oklahoma Sooners done in the transfer portal?
I'm going to say no. We still have a few spots where we need to kind of fill. I know that one big name that's been floating around is Owen Wafle. It's not Waffle. Wish it was Waffle, but I'm going to call him Waffle. I'm going to call him the Waffle King, mainly because there's two Waffles, the Waffle brothers. You got him and his brother Luke up there at Hunn High School up in their New Jersey area. But I know that the Sooners are pushing for another defensive lineman. If you get a guy like Owen, who was a freshman at Michigan, redshirt, he didn't play a snap last season. You may be wondering, Jay, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you go after a player like that? Well, you only took in one defensive tackle in the recent class with Trent Wilson. So it kind of makes sense to add somebody in the back to go with that. That means that you'll have him and Trent ready to play. Trent will still have his 4 years. He most likely will redshirt unless he goes out there and he sons of people, start moving furniture. But if you can get Owen, there's a good chance you could also win Luke to come in. So if you get Owen and Luke, they'll have 3 years together that they can potentially play ball because, Luke's most likely going to redshirt. Or at least they'll be on campus with each other for 3 years. And that's pretty huge opportunity because that is one recruit who's a really good edge that everyone's after. You want that 4-star if you get your hands on it. So I don't think that they're done. I think you will see a defensive tackle, a corner, and probably one more wide receiver before the squad is finished. What are you thinking, John?
I think if you're going to add a player, those are the positions you can look at. Because I think you can still find a guy to fill the Dejon Terry role, somebody that's that veteran or even, just another depth piece on your roster. But even if you're going after Owen Wafle and you decide that's the defensive tackle we want to add, okay, you're adding a developmental piece that's got a lot of eligibility left. And given what you had coming in the 2024 class, it was understandable why maybe you weren't going to pull in 3 defensive tackles. But with the way Jaden Jackson has emerged and David Stone and the expected breakout that we're looking to in 2025, you can bring in a guy to kind of be in behind them, be in that Trent Wilson, range of projection and development and start working from there. I still think if you could add a veteran corner, I think that's the place where you could really afford to bring somebody in because I love Eli Bowen and Jacoby Johnson and what their potential looks like. I like Gentry Williams. If my man can stay healthy, somebody give him the super soldier serum and give him the Winter Soldier bionic arm for his shoulder. I need my dude on the field because he is a dynamic player when he's out there. You still need some veteran depth. And that's not even including all the young guys like a Malik Hawkins and Jeremiah Newcomb, what they've got on the outside coming in. I think you could afford to bring in somebody that's got a lot of experience, somebody that's played 500-600 snaps in the 2024 season that's in the portal that can help supplement what those guys are doing. Because, yes, you want to develop your own. Eli Bowen, he's got a lot of game to him, at the same time, maybe you need a guy with some size to be able to throw out there in certain matchups to give Eli Bowen maybe some run on the inside, playing some slot corner, something like that. So those are kind of the two areas where I'm really looking at Oklahoma to look to continue to add a guy. If they want to bring in another wide receiver, I wouldn't hate it. At the same time, I like the group that they've got on campus right now and in-house, between the transfer portal additions, the guys that are coming back from last year, and the guys they brought in the recruiting class. I think wide receiver looks pretty good. You just got to develop these guys and see what comes to fruition in spring ball and fall camp as to who's going to be your top three, because aside from Deion Burks, you don't really have any answers. But if you can get Deion Burks out there and he can stay healthy, if Jaden Gibson gets ramped up, sometime by conference play, I can get him back for conference play, I'll feel great. Like a year from his ACL should be fall camp. Yep. If he's like fully Jaden Gibson by conference play, I think that's a huge win. If not, then you've got to find some answers out there. But you have a lot of guys that you can use for competition to figure out who's going to be the best.
Yeah, I think it's the one thing that fans need to truly understand is that we went and got players that actually have production. So you're not bringing in dudes that, you think it's kind of cool to have. No, you're bringing in guys that actually have produced on the football field, and knock on wood, haven't been dealing with injuries like we've been dealing with. And so most of the guys that have left have been people that have dealt with some sort of injuries, 1, 2, or 3. And so now you're just going to go out there and hopefully have a whole bunch of guys that not only put up production, but ready to continue to do that. So with John Mateer coming out there, he's got a lot of new faces to chunk the ball to. He should be on campus this weekend and in preparation for winter workouts. And hopefully him and the guys are going out there throwing the ball around and, getting some good old catches going, building some good old chemistry. But I do think the Sooners will probably go get one more wide receiver. I'm kind of hoping we kick the tires on the old one that we used to have committed that ended up going to JUCO. Maybe we go after him again. I don't know, but I would love for us to pick up one more wide receiver with size. I want us to get one more corner with some size. I want another Kanai Walker size corner, 6'2", 6'3" guy that also has some speed in preparation for these big wide receivers we're going to see. Because, I love the way that Eli Bowen was defending Ryan Williams, but Ryan Williams is Ryan Williams. You're probably going to need another person on top to bracket that situation just in case. You're also going to see a guy like Cam Coleman who's super fast. You're going to see Nick Anderson again, once you go up against LSU, if he's healthy whenever you get around to that game. So since that's the case, you want to make sure that you have a bigger corner to go with it. But the good thing is some of the young guys coming in's got some size, with Cortland Guillory. He comes out there with a nice enough size to be able to cause some problems. So I'm not truly concerned. I would like a veteran corner, though, to prepare us for next year.
Yeah, because you have veterans at every other spot. At linebacker, safety, defensive line. You just need a little bit of veteran insurance on the outside. I think you've got it everywhere else on the roster. Quarterback, running back, offensive line, tight end. Yes, you maybe don't feel as ecstatic about the tight end position, but it's like we've talked about at a lot of these spots, who Oklahoma's brought in. None of these guys are progress stoppers. None of these guys are guaranteed starts. They're competition for the guys that you've got in-house. But if you can add some competition from a veteran perspective at cornerback, I think that's where it makes the most sense. Yeah. The Oklahoma Sooners are going to be getting going on the 2026 recruiting cycle, 27, 28. They're trying to get ahead of steam now, but they'll really start gearing up on 2026 over the next few weeks. What are we looking at? Where do they need to add some guys? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, if there's a position of strength for the 2026 cycle, what are you seeing as that position of strength?
Probably running back.
Okay.
Saw DeMarco Murray, went up to Tulsa and saw Caden Jones, the son of Kewan Jones, who played at Oklahoma. So he went up there. He's in the Tulsa area making some visits there. I believe that's one spot that from there and offensive line, I think that's probably the two places where I feel like you're going to see the biggest strengths coming in the 26 class. We'll probably see some. I don't know how many offensive linemen we'll take. We've got a pretty full room now with the young talent that we have, as well as the players that we have been going after. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that the Sooners won't be really trying hard to bring in some additional components, right? You've got Michael Fasusi and Ryan Fauché to be right behind Isaiah Autry-Dent and both the Jakes. Like, you've got some tackles and guards and everything, but I saw that Ben Arbuckle's out there in California giving out some offers to offensive linemen out in that area. I mean, an area I did not think we were going to be able to really do some damage again in, because, you know, we had some situations with wide receivers, but it sounds like players are still kind of interested in coming to Oklahoma. So if Ben Arbuckle can go ahead and patch some relationships, I'm all here for it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a class where you still attack offensive line. You love what you brought in 2025, but you can never have too much depth. I think after 2025, you're going to see kind of what this offensive line's future looks like. And I think you're going to start to see some guys look for opportunities elsewhere. I don't know who those guys are going to be, but I think because of what you got coming in behind them, so you're going to have to retool a little bit through the 2026 recruiting class. And again, wide receiver is a spot where you're going to have to load up. I think linebacker, you know, because you've taken very few linebackers over the last two cycles.
Yeah.
You know, you had a pretty good linebacker class in the 2022 cycle with Kobe and Kip and Jaron Kanik. And then in 2023, it was looking really good too with Samuel Masigo and Lewis Carter and Phil Picciotti. Well, Lewis Carter and Phil Picciotti are both gone. So, and then in 2024, you only took one linebacker, if I remember, James Nesta.
James Nesta. And then Marcus
2025,
James in 25.
So over the last, so you have one linebacker from each of the last three classes on the roster or about to be on the roster for 2025. So I think 2026, it's another recruiting class where you need to double, maybe triple dip at linebacker to replenish what may or may not be here for the 2026 season. So I think that's a position where Oklahoma really needs to get aggressive and make sure they land a guy that's going to be ready to take the reins from whoever is the starting middle linebacker beyond 2026, looking to 2027.
Yeah, as I look at it and really think about it, I think 26 is where you're probably going to need a linebacker and a defensive lineman, mainly because all those 23s and 24s on the defensive line and edge, you're going to want to have some guys right there in the chamber in preparation. And so you get another 26, you're probably going to need two guys in 26 that have an opportunity to push. And the good thing for them is they just saw Jaden Jackson get the opportunity to play as a freshman and become a freshman All-American. So when their mindset is, oh, if y'all gonna actually let me play if I'm good, I can take people's jobs. Shoot, sign me up. And I think that's the best thing that this staff has shown, is that they're gonna play the best players, the ones that can actually do what's needed in the scheme to make things work. And if you show that you have those capabilities in practice, that's all that matters. And so we got the coaches out in the streets this week. School starts next week for the players, so they'll be all coming in this weekend to get enrolled. I think I saw an article that OU Insider dropped about Jet New. He came in for his official visit finally. Like, he never actually visited here, but he committed to Ben Arbuckle the moment that he got the offer. And so he did his official visit, got to watch some film with Coach John Kusieski, and talked with Brent Venables. And so he's pretty excited about being here and having the opportunity. So as these players are coming in, the coaches are now dispersing, getting their visits in. I think Emmett Jones is down in Texas. So he's hitting up the Dallas area, his old stomping grounds. You're going to start seeing a bunch of offers, as we've already seen on social media. A bunch of offers are going out right now in preparation for 26 as well as 27. So, John, this staff, I do agree, linebacker and defensive line, mostly interior, are probably the two places I think you're going to have to focus heavily on. I think you're safe at safety corner to take maybe one this rotation, this one, unless in this cycle there's an athlete where you say, oh no, I got to have that kid.
Right.
But outside of that, you're probably going to have to definitely hit up wide receiver. And I think that's really the 3 positions where you're going to have to go a little bit heavier than you normally would. But with the 105 player limit, it's going to be a little interesting on how they're going to play it. I kind of expect us to have smaller classes going forward.
Yeah, so that you're not having to process guys.
Right.
Because I don't think anybody wants to have that. So I think Oklahoma's going to probably find a sweet spot in the 17 to 20 range, most cycles. I think depending on what they see in this class, a lot of that's going to depend on it too. Is this a class where it's worth taking 20 kids and then maybe shorting yourself in 27? It's going to be fascinating to see, because just like at every NFL draft class, there are strengths and there are weaknesses in every single class. We just saw it in the 2024 cycle. The strength was the defensive line, right? 2025, it was offensive line. Well, what's it going to be in 2026? I think we're still trying to figure that out. But Oklahoma's got some positions where they're going to have to be big-time players. And again, linebacker is one of those. I think you're going to have to be a big-time player at wide receiver. And then looking ahead, I mean, you've already got your quarterback in Jaden O'Neal. You've got a tight end in Ryder Mix. You've got a nice interior offensive lineman in Will Conroy, who's making his way down to IMG Academy for his senior year. So my man's going to come in very developed. If Jaden Jackson and David Stone are any example to look at, then those guys, then Will Conroy will come in ready to roll, basically. So I'm intrigued by that. But I think everything is still on the table for Oklahoma. I agree with you. You're good at safety for the next couple of years. You're good at running back for the next couple of years with, Taylor Tatum and Xavier Robinson, and with Torrey Blaylock right now. With those 3, you're pretty well set up for 25, 26, I think. I think all 3 of those guys are dynamic players that are going to be able to help Oklahoma win games. So it's going to be fascinating to see where this coaching staff kind of puts all the eggs for this cycle. Yeah,
and definitely you want to get the in-state guys. Definitely, like I said, you want a KD Jones. You want to get the state dudes. There's a few state players I looked at, like Taj Overton. He's probably the defensive tackle that I think that you got to get your hands on. He has an opportunity to really propel himself up into the top, the top 100, no problem. You definitely want to get your hands on Mason James, the wide receiver there out of Norman High. Norman North. Those 2 are the ones you definitely want to get your hands on, along with KD Jones, because you got to lock up as much of the state as you possibly can. Like, we've already lost 2 players to Arkansas, Colton Yarbrough, who's down there in Durant, and I totally understand why Arkansas ended up getting him, and Adam Austin out of Lawton MacArthur. But you want to make sure that you're at least putting a major effort in state. OK Prep agenda has to be pushed, because the moment you get yourself a 5-star in-state, you want to make sure that they're locked in and coming to Oklahoma, similar to David Stone. Even though he left and went to IMG, he's back, and he's hardcore in with his Sooners, and he's been doing a really good job of recruiting other players to join him.
And we know that this coaching staff can recruit. They just flat out recruit. So I'm excited to see how this class begins to develop over the next year. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll have it covered for you here on Locked On Sooners. So stay with us. Even throughout the offseason, we will be right here with you every single day talking Oklahoma football, recruiting, more transfer portal stuff, as we've got 4 teams still left to play. So it could get a little bit more interesting over the next few weeks as well. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. You can check me out at John9Williams. Check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over at YouTube. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Boomer.
Sooner.